Hey everyone, welcome to my 100 subscriber special, although really it's more close to 146 subscriber special. Yeah, I took a while making this, there were technical difficulties and whatnot, but to have made 100 subscribers with only a few months realistically from when I started really focusing on YouTube, which was August of 2023, working on potentially the most lukewarm opinion video I will ever make, I wanted to bring you another highly opinionated video. It's not a tier list this time, but instead I tend to do what I always do when I reach certain milestones in my life. Whether that be surviving 20 years, surviving another year, finishing a period of schooling or education, or even just managing to submit coursework. But what I do during these times is I tend to look back on the past, however long that needs to be in retrospect to where I'm at. And also because I want to prove to my therapist that I can be introspective, I look back at things that are significantly important to me. Now, by taking a look at both my Twitch and YouTube channels, I'm pretty big on video games, and even bigger on video game lore and the stories in plenty of those games, as I'm quite sure a few of you, my subscribers, also are. For those of you that have been around very recently, you'd probably be aware of how much I love Knights of the Old Republic 2, and probably as a result of how much I've dick-rided that game, you probably would be surprised to hear that it's actually not my favourite video game. Sure, I love it to death, and it is by far the best piece of Star Wars media, in my opinion. It is far from my favourite game ever. In fact, it's not even in the top 10. And today's video focuses on the first story game I ever played as a kid. The one that's in the title. PokéPark 2 Wonders Beyond. Yeah, my first game was a sequel. And despite the third generation of Pokemon being my favourite gen, this game actually came out during Generation 5, which means my first Pokemon game was a Gen 5 game. Something my friend, who's a Generation 5 fanboy, is never likely to let me live down, so long as one of us is alive. Now, I don't need to explain what Pokemon is, of course. It's one of the biggest franchises in the world. And with every big franchise, spin-offs are inevitable, with Pokemon having several. A MOBA, competitive card game, whatever the hell Rumble is, the entire Mystery Dungeon franchise, stay tuned for a video on Rescue Team Deluxe in the future, and of course, the very short-lived PokéPark series. Now, before I properly start talking about PokéPark 2, I ought to talk about the first game, subtitled Pikachu's Adventure. The premise is simple. You, as a lone Pikachu, travel throughout various areas of PokéPark to find your friends who have been separated from you and hopefully locate you to mend the broken bonds of the area leaders of the PokéPark. There are also mini-games, usually 2 per area. Now, if I were to compare both games from a more critical point, I'd say they're probably as good as each other. PokéPark 2 does vastly improve on many things found in the original, such as controls and being able to play as more than just Pikachu in the open world, not to mention just the depth of the story itself. However, the minigames are significantly lacking in number, the amount there actually is to do in the world is lessened, and also just the amount of Pokemon you can meet has also lessened. In fact, the game is so small you can actually complete it in less than 24 hours. Okay, that's the most depth I'm really going to go into about the first game. Now to talk about the story of the second, because I like the story, that's why I'm here, that's why you're here to hear me talk about this game's story. The basis is pretty simple. The 2 guys from those movies nobody saw are talking about an oncoming darkness and how there's a small light in the darkness that might solve the problem. Then we're thrown into the opening tutorial segment, where you play as the same Pikachu from the first game, on your way to visit another Pokepark from one of your best friends from the last game, Piplup. He's invited you to come and visit this one, specifically the Cove area of this Pokepark. Once arriving in the Cove area, you come across a couple of definitely not shady Pokemon advertising a place even better than the Pokepark, Wish Park. Piplup really likes the sound of this, and the 2 of you head towards the entrance of Wish Park at the other end of the beach. Though partway there you're interrupted by a private investigator who tries to rob you. Now, I know my audience is comprised of mainly adults, but given this is a Pokemon based video, it may attract a younger audience as well. So I'm here to do my due diligence and remind you kids that if someone tries to rob you, just say no. The robber legally cannot take your money without your consent. Anyways, you move on past this and make your way through a portal opened by these two lovely chaps to enter Wish Park, which is a parallel dimension to the PokéPark, where you're prompted to play a cake making minigame. Upon completion, you're told by a Panseer, who hasn't had a chance to eat any yet, that the cake is making visitors act strangely. A talking coffin then force feeds him cake and he instantly becomes an addict, craving more, much like your average Slavic man after he's had his first sip of vodka. Anyways, you're saved by the PI right before you too are turned into a mindless cake-eating zombie, and you manage to escape a couple of giant hands that try to keep you in Wish Park. Oh, by the way, Piplup sacrifices himself to make sure you get back to Pokepark safely, so now stopping the drug ring has become a personal matter. The PI takes you to his boss, the area leader Samurai, who tells you to team up with the PI so you can learn more about Wish Park, as you don't know how to open the portal to get back, and it's also clear they're mind controlling other Pokemon to kidnap them. Now let me save you 15 minutes here. Basically, the salesman tells you to get back to Wish Park, you need the power of friendship. The more friends you have wishing to open a portal at the same time, the easier it is to open, which is pretty neat way to incentivize the player to go about and befriend as many Pokemon in there as possible, whereas opening the 4 Wish Park portals in the game is sort of a minigame of their own right, since they do give you a score once the portal opens. After making friends and getting back to Wish Park, you need to take on the minigame one more time, which then triggers a boss fight. Each major boss in the game has 2 phases. The first phase being a game where you need to destroy something to get the boss's attention, or simply reach the boss arena. Now, to save some more time, essentially ringing the wish bells in each area of Wish Park breaks the mind control over the Pokemon in that area. And that's the basic story loop of the main game. You go to Wish Park, beat minigame, beat boss, then ring bell. Now, obviously there's a lot more lore as you go on throughout the game, but I want to save some time on this video, so I'll quickly run over the main story beats best I can. Piplup has since gone elsewhere in Wish Park, so you and the PI are tasked with warning the other area leaders about Wish Park in hopes of being able to devise a strategy to stop whatever their master plan is, and hopefully find Piplup in the process. The next area, you team up with Royalty to find an invitation to a festival to repair a portal so you can help a fox find a furry that has been brought under mind control. Here you do some dancing, destroy sound and lighting equipment, and find Piplup, who says he's staying in Wish Park to try and help fight them from the inside. Now, as upsetting as this is, Piplup has gone undetected, so he can clearly handle himself, and you're forced to agree and work separately for now. Next up, you befriend a Tepig at the request of Victini. Unable to locate any information about Wish Park, you agree to join Tepig in a combat tournament for the time. That is until a couple of dragons kidnap Victini. Yes, the legendary Pokemon Victini, whose whole gimmick is being lucky, managed to get kidnapped by a couple of sore losers. Once you arrive in this part of Wish Park, you take part in a karate dojo and beat a dragon to death. Oh, by the way, Piplup got kidnapped by a goth woman and her boss, who happens to be Darkrai. A bit of a side tangent on Darkrai actually while we're on it. Despite being the nightmare Pokemon, Darkrai is rarely ever an actual villain in any significant appearance outside of the mainline games. And even in the mainline games, he's usually an event-only Pokemon, or in Legends Arceus' case, only obtainable if you suffered through the Gen 4 remakes. Sure, he was an antagonist at the start of his own movie in the anime, but he wasn't ever really the villain, more of an anti-hero. All the other members of the Wish Park crew, you can kind of get why they were chosen to be villains. The attraction owners all have Pokédex entries talking about how dangerous they are in the mainline games, and Hydreigon, Krokorok and Sandal are often portrayed as malicious in other media, such as the anime. But this is the only time in the entirety of their notable appearance that I can think of where Darkrai is actually villainous. Anyways, next up you're sent to a train yard to help find a scientist by repairing a bridge, talking to some sentient gears to power an elevator, and end up in the lab of a talking brain and his... I don't know what exactly the relationship between these 3 are. They don't really ever refer to each other, they all just seem to share the lab space. Anyways, this guy, Reuniculus, made the Wish Park portals. Though he's not the one who discovered Wish Park, as that credit goes to his old best buddy Darkrai. Through upon learning that Darkrai has been making an effort to stop people from ringing the wish bells to make sure anyone who plays the attractions doesn't want to leave, Reuniculus reveals some key information about the relationship Wish Park has with the whole of reality. Now, partway through the game, you've been made well aware of a vortex suddenly appearing in the sky. This vortex threatens to swallow all of reality because the wish bells ring to keep reality stable. Upon completion of the final minigame and the following boss, Wish Park now becomes a whole world you can traverse without needing to visit a different area of the Pokepark to reach the other areas of Wish Park. And there you are, climax of the game. You've made it to Darkrai's lair, except... well... it's not Darkrai waiting for you in the throne room. It's Piplup. And I don't think I can do these next few minutes of the game justice just by talking about them. So here is the raw footage I recorded of those next few minutes. It's only about 10 minutes total, but I remember this moment as a kid, experiencing it for the first time and actually having to put down my controller and go to my bedroom and cry. Sure, I was an emotional kid, but I've not played a game that's brought me to tears in the same way as that did since then, and it's part of why the game stands out to me now. Hey, so editor flip here. I am recording this as I'm editing the final product. The recording date of that line was a while ago, shall we put it. And things have kind of changed. This is a small side tangent, I know, but I very recently just finished Cyberpunk 2077 and its expansion, Phantom Liberty. I don't think I'll be making a video on those, but I just kind of wanted to let it be known that that information is somewhat outdated by this point, as I finished the game for the first time not too long ago, like I said, and I actually caught my reaction to the credits on camera, and I never actually uploaded that footage because I don't like how I look when I cry, and I spent quite a long time crying during those credits. Tell you what, if there's enough demand, I will release that footage unedited. But yeah, sorry, just coming in here to give you the heads up on that outdated information. Enjoy the rest of the video. It made me feel really sad. Hell, even the following mission of finding your friends, I remember I was still wiping tears away. Now, obviously the stakes have become pretty high at this point. The vortex in the sky has grown to a dangerous size, and Darkrai still needs to be dealt with. So we make the journey to Wish Park one more time. And this time, Darkrai's gonna... But is he Dynamaxing? Anyways, Reuniclus and Piplup show up in Wish Park at the absolute last minute as the vortex is literally eating the world up with a solution, with, well, that solution being an orb. Darkrai, realizing the fact that reality is collapsing because of him, makes the ultimate sacrifice and flies into the vortex with the orb thing, fixing everything and actually saving the main cast in the process. Now there is post-game content. You get to meet a bunch of legendaries, befriend the Wish Park crew, and bring Darkrai back from nothingness to complete his redemption, and after all that, all you have to do is befriend the remaining Pokemon, replay the 2D platformers, and fight in the combat tournament. That's it. That's the whole game. I've admittedly skipped over quite a lot of smaller details here and there, but it's really not a big game at the end of the day. In fact, if you have a copy of this game right now, you can beat it in less than a weekend, and it's only taken 2 pages to summarize the game's story. Now, if this were a typical review video, I'd go into finer details and more critically analyze things like gameplay, and maybe areas of the story I thought could have been improved on. But this isn't a review or any form of critical retrospective. I like this game. It's important to me and I want to talk about it because of what it means to me. Obviously, the Pokemon franchise and a lot of the games and associated media massively focus on the aspect of Pokemon being friends, or how the power of friendship is ridiculously broken. I mean, affection mechanics in the modern games are a good example of that lore aspect translating into gameplay with how busted they can be at times. The franchise was one of the things I grew up with, especially the anime, and the themes and displays of friendship have always really struck a chord with me, even when I was a kid, and I think PokéPark 2 really encapsulates what it's like to fight for your friends, to want to be with your friends, and that you don't have to face things alone. In the first PokéPark game, your friends remain a permanent fixture in the world and help advance the plot in each area, but you're still travelling into those new areas alone with no backup or help. And you only get to play as Pikachu, meaning you are inevitably weaker and at a disadvantage to a lot of the forces that oppose you. Here, it's different. You're out to rescue your friend, and you've got other friends with you helping to carry that burden. And to be honest for a second, I, like many other people, and maybe some of you watching, was bullied as a kid. Heavily. And I didn't have a lot of friends when I was younger. Hell, it took me a while to realise I had friends because of the amount of bullies I had and bullying I went through. As I continue to grow older, I can't help but really think back to this game and how sad I felt at the prospect of losing friends, and how sad I was when I had to fight Piplup, when my friends were taken away from me in game. I think in a way, everyone could use a friend like Pikachu in their lives. Someone who cares for their friends to the point that eternal damnation be damned, they'll go through the end of the world if it means they get to be there for you. And I am very lucky to have friends like that now, and I really hope that one day I'll be able to repay the kindness they've shown me in full. And so I'd like to end this video a bit differently than normal. There's no typical outro this time, and I want to just leave this off with a few thank yous. Number one being everyone watching this video right now. Thank you to all of you who have waited for this. I know I have delayed this video by quite a bit, and I do apologise for that. It was, unfortunately, both me being somewhat procrastinating everything, especially after I accidentally deleted a lot of the footage I recorded for this video, as well as some other real life stuff that, like many people, I unfortunately have to deal with. Next up, I'd like to thank pretty much everyone who has ever interacted with this channel, whether they've liked, subscribed, commented, or shared. All of that stuff kind of just goes a lot to make me feel like I've done something that's enjoyable. It almost validates my enjoyment of making these as a hobby, and I don't really plan on stopping that. In fact, I really hope that maybe one day there's a bit more of a team I can make, or just a team I can put behind some of these videos. Be a really nice luxury to have, but I am glad with what little support I have in my corner of the internet. And finally, I'd like to thank 5 very specific people. Their names are on screen now. And if you couldn't tell by the little monologue I had right before this part of the video, these are my 5 best friends in the world. 3 of them have been there since we were kids, and have unironically been the realest people I know and likely will ever know. The other two, well, I've only known them for a realistically short time, only about 4 years now, but in those 4 years, I have been able to feel like I can trust them enough with a bit more about who I am as a person, and in return they have trusted me with more about them as people, and that trust means a lot to me. They have been there for me when, middle of the night, when times are tough, and I have tried my best to be there for them as well. And I genuinely do not think without any of these 5 people, I would be half the person I am today. As I believe that my friends have shaped me, and have made me a better person for knowing them. So that being said, thank you to you 5, thank you to everyone watching, and I will see you all soon. Good night. You teach me